In November's hush, a full moon climbs high. White, watchful, and ancient. Called the Beaver Moon, it carries names older than maps. Names whispered through forests, across marshes by rivers. Welcome back to Whispered Chronicles, echoes of forgotten lore. Tonight, we lean into these whispers. We will trace alternate names, follow their footprints through culture and nature, and ask, what invitation does this moon extend to us now? This moon is not just sky, painted as a mirror, a threshold, a signal. We step through quietly. When we speak of the Beaver Moon, we invoke one name among many. It's time and place. Different peoples have named November's full moon with care, based on what the land and life were doing. In Algonquian-influenced traditions used by some northeastern Native American communities, names such as Beaver Moon and Frost Moon emerge in colonial almanacs translating older seasonal cycles. Some sources also list Freezing Moon, or Freezing Moon, as alternate names evoking the first real touch of winter. But let us wander further. Among settler almanacs carrying indigenous names, Frost Moon is common. Freezing Moon also appears in Celtic-inspired neo-folk sources. The November full moon has been called Morning Moon or Darkest Depths Moon, capturing the pull toward darkness. In some indigenous seasonal calendars, names like Moon of Leaving and Ojibwe and Anishinaabe contexts mark the month when migratory birds depart or life leaves fields for winter. While I have not found a specific recorded name in mainstream sources, this type of leaving imagery is present in seasonal naming traditions in some indigenous North American contexts. Another evocative name comes from Tlingit lore, the digging moon or scratching moon, often rendered in source as Giak Sabut or approximate phonetic versions. In Tlingit seasonal practice, that name correlates with a time when ground becomes harder, when roots are more difficult to unearth, when foraging and shellfish gathering become riskier. The name is not just poetic, it is a calendar cue. As the ground stiffens under frost, people would race to collect the last of edible roots, tubers, or low shellfish before the deep freeze locked them underground. In some, these names emerged from life intimately tied to the land shift. They're not random synonyms, but markers of environmental change, subsistence rhythm, and human observation. And so when we say Beaver Moon, let us hear the echo of Frost Moon. Digging Moon, Moon of Leaving, each a thread in this lunar tapestry. Now let's touch the clockwork behind the poetry. This Beaver Moon is not merely symbolic, it's a celestial event, grounded in orbital dance and physical laws. In 2025, the November full moon is also a supermoon, because it occurs near the moon's closest point perigee to Earth. In fact, it is the closest full moon of the year, making it appear slightly larger, brighter, and more assertive in the sky. Because the sun lies low in the sky in November, this full moon being nearly opposite rides higher than many summer moons. In simple terms, the sun is low, so its opposite, the full moon, reaches a higher arc above the horizon, giving that light more time to flood the land at night. That extra luminance would have mattered deeply to nocturnal laborers, hunters, trappers, and those journeying under moonlight. The longer the moon shone, the more hours of safe movement, of pathfinding, of setting traps before darkness swallowed them. But notice, the moon's gravitational force also pulls on tides, on groundwater, on subtle shifts we often ignore. While modern science finds no consistent proof that full moons change human behavior in predictable ways, the pull of water is undeniable. If we listen poetically, we can say that this is a moon of pull, a moon reminding us, even when we think nothing is moving, unseen forces are active beneath. Why a beaver? Because though animals do not name moons, humans project meaning into them. And the beaver offers one of the richest symbolic lenses. In indigenous and modern symbolic traditions, the beaver is a potent totem of industry, perseverance, resourcefulness, creation, environmental design. Sheena House describes the beaver as a symbol of perseverance, resourcefulness, and hard work. One who adapts, constructs, and contributes to its ecosystem. In Native American stories, beavers are more than fur animals. They are agents of balance, of water control, of shaping their world. Let us think of archetypal beaver qualities. The architect, The beaver does not passively inhabit. It builds the river, sculpts flow, erects dams and lodges. The preserver. It caches food underwater. Secures its stores, shelters against winter's harshness. The boundary keeper. By slapping its tail, it warns. By building walls, it delineates inside from outside. In a sense, it draws lines in water and land. The collaborator. Beaver families work together. Their structures often support other species, creating wetlands, ponds, and life in their wake. Even the beaver's tail has symbolic weight. According to a Cree legend and others, the beaver was told that his tail would not be beautiful, but it would be useful. A strong rudder in water. A balance tool, even a loud drum when slapped. That slap carries meaning. Alert, boundary, signal. The Beaver Moon asks us, where do my boundaries need clarity? When do I issue a warning? When do I retreat? Metaphor becomes mirror. Under this moon, we can ask, am I building mere scaffolding or lasting structure? What resources, emotional, spiritual, material have I reserved for winter's long stretch? Where should I set boundaries between work, leisure, self, others? Which parts of my inner lodge need reinforcement? Across lands and voices, the Beaver Moon carries omen stories, vestiges of how earlier humans listened to night, to frostcrack, and to change. We open our ears now to the night language of our ancestors. The sounds of warning and promise. In some Appalachian traditions, watchers believed that when the moon's face, reflected in a shallow, frost-thin pond, appeared broken and unsettled like fractured glass, the winter would bring heavy snow or an unusual flood. The elders would whisper, "The water trembles before the world does." Each ripple, it's a tiny prophecy of what pressure was building above and below. Farther north, among coastal and inland peoples of North America, the moon ring, that pale halo encircling the lunar disk, spoke its own warnings. Its size foretold the distance of the coming storm. A large, bright halo meant the tempest was near, its winds already at work beyond the hills. A faint, distant ring meant a greater blizzard was forming far away, still only a promise on the horizon. To watch the moon was to read the weather's breath before it arrived. In the old country across the sea, some said if frost flowers bloomed on windows beneath the Beaver Moon, the spirits of the departed were walking the cold paths home, not to haunt, but to look in on the living. Families would leave a candle in the sill, so the lost could find their way and pass in peace. If woodland creatures seemed restless, owl calls too close or too sharp, deer pacing oddly, or the wind-carrying voices that were not the winds, some believed, the veil between this world and the other had thinned. This was not always a fearful sign, but a quiet instruction, to hold one's peace and remain still. The wise did not shout into such nights, they listened. In modern earth-based or witchcraft traditions, these omens are read differently, not as forecasts of snow or storm, but as gauges of the inner climate. The Beaver Moon becomes a kind of spiritual barometer, a time for intention setting, inner gathering, boundary work, the spiritual equivalent of the beaver reinforcing its lodge. It is not outward expansion, but inward fortification. The call is simple: shore up what matters, mend what leaks, prepare to endure with grace. But let us be clear, these omens are not destiny. They are language, not prophecy, signs, shadows. The ancient code used by those who needed to be utterly attuned to the subtle voice of the land. We choose what we hear, and we choose how to prepare. The moon offers a gift, a moment to align our rhythm with nature's own. If you wish to accept this gift, we turn now to practice, not as a ceremony, but as deep listening. These are quiet gestures, small mirrors of the beaver's wisdom. 1. The architect's clearing. Inner lodge work. Before the freeze, the beaver clears its lodge of debris, old twigs, rotting reeds, the clutter that might invite cold. Take pen to paper and name your own debris. The mental brush, the forgotten obligations, the fears that no longer serve. Write them gently, as though setting them adrift into the encroaching darkness. Then, beneath that list, name what you will build in the months ahead, the boundaries you intend to strengthen, the inner fires you wish to tend. When you are done, read softly this whisper, an anchor for the long winter. I build from quiet intention. I shore my boundaries. I am preserving my spirit for the long journey inward, burn the first list, or bury it under fallen leaves. Keep the second folded near your hearth, or tucked inside a journal, your map of quiet construction. 2. The walking vigil, grounding and foundation. Walk not as a traveler, but as a sentinel upon your own landscape. Step slowly. Listen to the sound of your gait against the cooling earth. Let frostbitten leaves whisper beneath your feet. Pause at edges. The doorway of your home, the line where shadow meets light, the border of the woods. These are the places where one world blurs into another. Breathe deeply and ask within, what is my true footing? What must I hold to remain steady against the coming freeze? The answer may not come as words. It might arrive as silence, or as the sure feeling of ground beneath you. 3. The ancestral cache, signal offering. The beaver caches food beneath the water, stores that will feed it when the world is locked in ice. We too may cache something, not bark or branch, but wisdom. On a stone or a rough piece of wood, place a seed, a sprig of herb, or a small acorn, a promise of life sleeping through winter. Beside it, write one piece of wisdom you need to keep close, a teaching from an elder, a truth you've learned the hard way, a phrase that steadies you. This is your winter reserve. Keep it safe, or leave it under the moon as a quiet gift to strength. Each of these acts is less ceremony and more conversation, small ways of listening deeper. There are no rigid rules here, only invitations. Let boundary, foundation, and reserve be your 3 quiet guides into the heart of November. Tonight, let the Beaver Moon hold your questions close. Sometimes, all you need is a little quiet time to get ready. You are called to build, not from haste, but from intention. To gather, not scatter. To draw your warmth inward and let the silence work its ancient alchemy. This is Whispered Chronicles, echoes of forgotten lore. Thank you for watching. In our next journey, we'll wander the hollers and hidden paths once more, listening for what the moonlight stirs, the stories that move between worlds and whisper through the dark. Until then, may your shadows be still, your foundations strong, and as always, stay safe.